Hello and welcome to Chad Magic. My name's Christian.
And my name's Bailey.
And you've been back brewing, haven't you?
Yeah,
Bailey?
exactly. So with the new set out, Phyrexia will be one. There's no better time to try and brew some new decks, especially in the Brewer's Paradise that is Pioneer. So exactly. So many cool cards to play with. And today we brought you 3 new decks that feature 3 key pivotal cards from the new set. And, bring them down to your next F&M, try them out, and we'll see how it goes.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Bailey. We're excited to get into them. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell for any notifications for more content like this. And if you want to see more, please leave a comment below because we do read every comment. Without any further ado, Bailey, what is the first deck?
Yeah, let's get into it. Well, the first deck that we're going to look at today takes some inspiration from our favourite man with the baggy pants, which is MC Hammer, and we're going to be playing Hammertime. So this is a deck that was originally a modern deck, and we're going to take a Pioneer spin on it now with some new cards that we've got.
So it's like Pioneer Hammertime.
Exactly. So the main card of the deck, if you haven't seen Hammertime before, is a card called Colossus Hammer. Colossus Hammer is an equipment for 1, but has a massive equip cost, but it gives your creature +10/+10, and it loses flying, if that matters, I guess. So usually the way that the deck gets played is you can't play Hammertime by equipping for 10, I think it is, a massive amount. Equip for 8.
Equip for 8, yeah.
And but instead of doing that, we're going to try and work our way around this massive equip cost and equip to our smaller creatures and hit our opponents for 10, 11, 12 early in the game, turns 2, 3, 4, and do a massive amount of damage.
So before your opponent knows what's going on, they've taken a ton of damage.
Exactly. Okay. Already half of their life points are gone, and they've still going to be staring down the barrel of a 12/12 or something. So
sounds good.
Exactly. So the thing that makes this deck work now in Pioneer is a new card that we got from the new set called Kemba, Enduring, and this is a cat 2/2 that basically says whenever a creature comes into play, you can equip a equipment onto it. So it's the Kemba itself or another cat. It allows you to equip this 10/10 hammer.
So you could turn 1 Colossus Hammer, turn 2 Kemba,
exactly,
and then you can just equip for nothing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So rather than paying 8, you're gonna on turn 2 have a massive creature
That's
that is going to be it's going to be threatening lethal within a turn or 2. So this is what is allowed us to port this deck over from Modern into Pioneer.
Great.
We've also got a couple of other ways to allow us to equip to this Colossus Hammer to our creatures for free. So a couple of ways that we've got stuff like Sigarda's Aid. Sigarda's Aid is probably, next to Colossus Hammer, is the second most important card in the deck. And it's a 1-mana enchantment for a white that says you can play equipment as if it had flash, and whenever an equipment comes into play, it's going to automatically equip to a creature.
Oh wow! So
exactly.
That really enables the sort of the equipment. It means that you can flash it in, so you could actually like surprise Hammertime.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, you now have, as soon as you have a Sigarda's Aid in play, you essentially have a 1-mana combat trick that says your creature perpetually gains +10/+10.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Which is insane, like, as a thing. So this is one of the other most important cards in the deck. But obviously, if our deck revolves around this hammer, we need a way to find the hammer. We need a way to search it out in our deck. So we've got a couple of ways to do that. We've got our Open the Armories, which lets you search for an equipment. So we're going to be able to get the hammer if we want it. We've also got stuff like the Nihiri from Zendikar, which allows you to look at the top 6, I believe it is. It's looking for a warrior and equipment. We're going to search stuff up that way. We've also got Fighter Class from Adventures of Forgotten
Realms. This allows you to search your library for specific equipment, yeah.
It has other 2 abilities, but we're mostly interested in that first ability, which is going to let us look for the hammer and put it into our hand. So obviously we've talked about the hammer, but we need to talk about what we're doing to, what creatures we're actually equipping it to.
Yeah, makes sense, yeah.
So we know about Kemba, but we've also got 2 other really interesting creatures in the deck. That we're going to be sticking the hammer onto. So one that we also got from the new set is a card called Cacophony Scamp. Now, Cacophony Scamp is a 1-mana creature. It's 1 red for a 1/1. But it says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can sacrifice it. If you do, it's going to deal damage equal to its power to a target. So yeah, So as a 1/1, usually it's just going to be pinging something. But if we can attach the hammer to it, we're suddenly hitting any target for 10, 11.
Wow. So this sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
So 1 mana, you play the Cacophony Scump on turn 1. Then on turn 2, you could play the hammer or Sigarda's Aid and then the hammer.
Yeah, exactly.
Swing in, and you could win on turn 2.
Yeah, exactly. This deck has a turn 2 kill in it. That is actually relatively easy, consistent to pull off. So a turn 2 kill is going to be something that basically is just going to win you games out of nowhere. There is very little that, your opponent comes in and plays a tap land. That's it. The game's over. You're already going to second. So it's a really, really interesting looking deck. We've also got another card from the new set, which is Skrell Defector Might. So Skrell is sort of an imitation of a very old card in Magic called Mother of Runes.
Okay.
And Mother of Runes gives you, it will tap, give protection to one of your creatures from a colour. Now, Skrell is not quite as good as that. You have to pay a Phyrexian life, but it's still no mana, so you can pay 2 lives, pretty good. And it's going to let you effectively attack in and your opponents not be able to block your big threats.
Okay.
So if you have this massive equipped creature, Skrell's going to say, hey, your 1/1 that you've got there, your Llanowar Elves can no longer block my 10, 10, 11, 11.
Okay.
We're going to be swinging in. So I feel like in the aggressive slant that this deck takes, having this protection and the ability to effectively give it evasion is really, really impressive.
What I think is interesting about Skrell as well is because it actually doesn't say protection. If you've got an equipment that I know you're going to come into some of the other equipment that you could potentially use that has a colour and you wanted to run a colour in there, it wouldn't detach it.
Yeah.
Whereas you could still do it, which can be a problem with other protection spells
Exactly.
like a Brave the Elements or something like that, where it would give you protection from a colour. Oh no, well my equipment's fell off.
Exactly, you're exactly correct, because in this situation, in our aggressive slant, the fact that it isn't protection is a benefit for us in some way. So yeah, really, really interesting, powerful card. So it's something I'm excited to give a spin with. And as you say, we can't just play just with the hammer. We need a little bit of a backup plan just in case our turn 2 kill doesn't quite plan out, and we're going to shift into more of a controlling sort of route from there. So we've got 2 other equipment in the deck which we'll be able to search out. So that is Maul of the Skyclaves and Shadow Spear. Maul of the Skyclaves is great. It pumps your creatures, it gives it flying.
And First Strike.
And First Strike. A ridiculously powerful equipment, especially with if we're already able to knock our opponent down in the early game. We maybe hit them for 11 and then they killed our creature. We only need to get in for that additional 9 damage, and this is really going to help you do that. Shadow Spear is a bit more controlling. If you need to start stabilizing against a bit more of an aggro deck, it basically just is going to say a really cheap equip cost, make your creature a little bit bigger, gain you some life and stabilize you against the truly aggressive decks.
Trample might be important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you wanted to, and say we don't have a way, you don't have a Skrell and we can't give it unblockable, well, you could equip your hammer equip thing with the Shadow Spear, and now it's got trample and you're going to be dealing, 9, 10 damage depending on what you're doing.
So one of the questions I was just going to ask as we're going through, the Cacophony Scump is the new card that sort of enables that. Are there any other creatures that can kind of do damage to their opponents directly to its power in there as well? Yeah,
exactly. So it's the as well as the Cacophony Scump, we've also got Fireblade Charger, which says it's a 1-mana 1/1, same as the other one, and it says if it's equipped, it has haste, which is great if our whole deck revolves around equipment. And when it dies, it's going to also be able to deal its damage to any target. So we have essentially 3 different phases our deck can play in. We have our turn 2 combos that we're going to be able to kill people with Colossus Hammer. We have then just our super aggro. We're going to start beating you down. Say if we don't kill you right away, well, we're going to still threaten to kill you the next turn, the turn after that. And then even more after that, we have stuff like Shadow Spear and Maul of the Skyclaves as we shift into the later game just to help finish the deck.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So are there any other sort of things that you would recommend putting in the deck? Anything that you maybe considered going into the main board that maybe didn't make it?
Yeah, so I mean, because we are playing a equipment strategy, equipment are super powerful, but they run the risk of you getting blown out if someone removes the creature that you go to equip to, or you just don't have a creature to equip to, then all the mana that we've spent investing in our equipment suddenly go to waste. So one thing that I was interested in the deck, and it's something that we'd have to play around with to see how it plays, is to see, is there enough protection for our creatures to say, hey, do we consistently have a creature on the battlefield that we can equip a equipment to? Are we able to keep it on the board for several turns, or is our opponent, are we playing against like a Rakdos player and they've got 5 removal spells in hand, they kill everything on sight, and half our cards are suddenly a little bit more janky than we were expecting. So it's we've got some stuff in the deck to help protect. So we've got stuff like Lauren's Escape. We've also got one of the MDFC, the white card, the Sergi Shelter, I believe it is.
I don't know.
I've never had to say that. Never had to say that out loud. But it's one of those things where to see if we A, have enough creatures, or B, are we able to protect them enough to actually keep them around. We have different stuff, like we're running 3 Mutavaults in our land base just to give us an extra creature, a little bit more reach if we have to.
So that I suppose brings us onto the mana base then. So how many lands are you running, and is there any sort of special lands in here that you'd recommend?
So I mean, we're currently running 21 lands and then the MDFC on that. So we are quite low to the ground. We don't have any cards that are over 3 mana, I believe. I can't remember if the here is 3 or 4. It's 4. Okay, so we only have one 4 mana card. So we basically are able to we can trim a few lands in order to give us a bit more reach in our.
Well, we all love trimming.
Yeah,
lands,
exactly.
Yeah.
The traditional. The mana base in Pioneer at the minute is actually getting pretty good, and it's another thing that is making Pioneer a great brewing experience is the new fast lands that came in. So this deck doesn't use any of the new ones from the new set, but it does run Inspiring Vantage, which is a fast land itself. Because as we say, we are really playing in the early game. We want to develop our threats early and get out before our opponent can outvalue us, essentially. So stuff like that. We've got the Mutavaults to give us extra reach. And we've also got our Hamagawa, which is the channel land. So we've got a free Aganjo, which is going to just allow us to get rid of a blocker if we need to do it. Or we've also got Sekenzan, which creates goblins, which is going to give us a way to, an additional creature to equip our equipment to if we need to in the end. Apart from that, it's mostly we're using a lot of fast lands, we're using the pain lands because we're such an aggressive deck. We don't mind getting hit for a few if it means that we get cards out early.
And the combo will need a red and a white mana, doesn't it?
Exactly. So we need a little bit of flexibility in what we've got. But yeah, I think the mana seems to be pretty solid on it. You can twist it, change it, see if there's any optimizations. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
And what about the sideboard then? Because obviously the Pioneer meta at the moment, I think it's probably due a bit of a shake-up.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we've got like Rakdos mid-range, we've got Mono Green Devotion, we've got Mono White Humans, we've got Is It Phoenix?
Yep.
What are you kind of doing to protect yourself against
this? Exactly. I mean, because as you say, with those main decks that we've got, they tend to attack you in a lot of different angles. So we have, we need to, as we go into games 2 and 3, we need to be able to sideboard in to actually fight against them. So one of the things that this deck runs, just because we can really, is Gigantha as its companion. Now, Gigantha doesn't really have a whole lot relevance to the deck. It's just a free 5/5. And, I'll let you say in the comments whether you think companion was a mistake. Who knows? Yeah. But basically, it's a free 5/5 that we're able to play in the deck that as we start going into the later game, and we need a creature to equip to, we need something to do. Yeah. This is just going to be our top end if we have. And so, as you're saying, for the meta game that we've got, we obviously have stuff like, we need to be able to attack graveyards, so stuff like Phoenix. So we've got a Lion Sash, we've got 2 Unlicensed Hearse in there. So that gives us a way to not only attack the graveyard, but because Lion Sash is an equipment, we can search it up with all of our equipment stuff. Lion Sash, we have a lot of small creatures that we are... Unlicensed Hearse. As we go into the late game and as we've started to eat these cards from the graveyard, we're going to be swinging in for a 6/6 and an 8/8, stuff like that. We've also got stuff like Portable Holes. So if you find yourself against another aggro deck, or you need to remove a turn 1 play like Llanowar Elves or something,
Or for me, it would be something like my recruitment officer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a very powerful card, especially against those two decks, because you see like a turn 1 elf, and you're like, oh, I'll just get rid of that elf, yeah. And then, then they're sort of sat there with all the cards in hand, not able to do anything. And it's the same, I don't want my turn 1 humans going anywhere.
Exactly. If you know that your opponent's deck revolves around being able to stick that key 1 drop, having these 4 in the board that we can bring in on games 2 and 3 if we have to is super, super useful. We've also got stuff like Pithing Needles. This is really good against Monogreen for their Planeswalkers. As you go, you should be able to just disrupt your opponent just enough that you're going to be able to get underneath them and kill them before the bigger threats come out, essentially. We also have, interestingly, we have the new sword that is in the sideboard as well.
Is that just because you want to play with the new sword?
Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, it's a good thing about, you've got to try the cards that you love and see how it work out. So I'm looking to try the new Sword of Forge and Frontier. So it's going to give us +2/+2, and what I think is really useful for that protection from red and green, especially red, for being able to stop your local Izzet player from shocking whatever bolt variety they want.
If only it was just one local Izzet player. We have in our LGS we have many Izzet players, including Bailey. Sorry.
Yeah, but stuff like this is basically, depending on the game plan, it can either let you transition into more of a mid-game, like a mid-range sort of deck, or also the protection may just allow you to, say if you're playing against I'm a red player. Hey, well, I've got a blocker that you are never going to be able to remove or destroy. So it's just a little bit of a tech choice, essentially, that you could put in. I'm excited to try out.
Yeah, makes sense. So just one last thing before we move on to the next deck. So I'm guessing that you can mulligan quite intensely on this deck. You can probably go down to about 5.
Agreed. Yeah, and especially considering we talked about the potential turn 2 kills that the deck does have. Aggressively mulliganing to, you've got Colossus Hammer in hand, you've got a creature to equip to. Because that threat is so powerful early on, you can probably go down to, as you say, down to 5. And a good 5 for you, well, it doesn't matter if they've got 7 cards in hand, if they're dead on turn 2, you know. So you should be able to mulligan quite aggressively with the deck, I think.
Good stuff. Well, thanks very much, Babe. We'll be right back with deck number 2.
So, deck number 2 is something that we're calling Poison Ivy. So, it's using the new Toxic mechanic that we've got from Phyrexia OB1 in relation with a card that we got from Dominaria United called Ivy, Gleeful Spellthief. So, what we can, the main card that has made this deck possible is a card called Venerated Rotpriest. Venerated Rotpriest is a really cool and interesting card that we've got in the new set. And it's a 1-mana 1/2 with Toxic. But the really important part is it says whenever a creature you control gets targeted by a spell, an opponent gains a poison counter.
Okay, so the deck wants to kind of use this interaction, I see, and then make it happen lots of times. Actually win with, basically with poison counters.
Exactly. So we want to be able to target our own stuff a lot of times and give our opponents, hopefully, 10 poison counters and win the game. So this is really the heart and soul of the deck. But as its namesake goes, we've also got our 2-drop, which is Ivy, Gleeful Spellthief. So Ivy says, whenever you target one of your creatures with a spell that doesn't target Ivy, Ivy then gets a copy of that spell targeting it.
Okay.
And this also works with weird stuff like it creates tokens for auras and stuff, which is really interesting, really cool card. But what we're going to be doing in this deck is say, okay, turn 1, Rotpriest. Turn 2, we're going to put out an Ivy. And then after that, we're constantly going to be targeting our own creatures. Each one, if we target the Rotpriest, is going to then target the Ivy, trigger the Rotpriest twice. And we only have to do that 5 times when our opponent dies.
I see, so the Toxic can just get out of hand really quickly.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the deck, because we're also targeting the main game plan is to target our own creatures, we've also got a creature called Storm Chaser Drake. And this is a 2/1 flyer, and it says whenever you have a spell that targets it, draw a card. If our whole deck's based around it, we're just going to refill our hand, getting more spells to target it, draw again, and hopefully just be able to, in 1 or 2 turns, put out a massive amount of Toxic to kill our opponent.
So if you, say, have the Storm Chaser out, the Rotpriest and an Ivy, you can basically get 2 Toxic counters on your opponent and draw a card.
Exactly, which is a great synergy that we've got. Another cool interaction that we've got with Ivy is a creature called Sea Dasher Octopus. which is a mutate creature from Ikoria. So what it says, it's you're going to be able to mutate for 1 and a blue, and it says when you mutate, the creature, whenever it deals damage, you're going to draw a card. But Ivy actually works really interestingly with mutate. So if we say targeted one of our Storm Chaser Drakes, and we mutated onto it, Ivy's going to say, hey, I've got a spell that is not targeting one of my things that is not targeting Ivy. I'm going to get a token copy of this mutate octopus, put it underneath, and we're going to get both of our, evasive creatures that are in the air. Whenever we hit them, we're going to draw cards. So because we're going to, the deck seems quite hungry for cards to be able to make sure that you can pump out enough toxic. We need to be able to refill our hand as best we can, essentially.
That's a really interesting thing with the mutate. I mean, I'd be keen to try loads of different mutate creatures in there myself.
That's true,
It probably work with things like the Gem Raiser as well.
That's a really good point, actually. I mean, it's definitely worth trying out, seeing what other different mutate creatures that you can find that are really useful. Because, if your meta is full of artifacts, Gem Raiser is going to be great. You're just going to absolutely, destroy people's whole decks, essentially. So, as well as, obviously, we are looking to mostly win the game through poison. But in order to get some value as we go, the new set has actually brought out a cool new mechanic, like a keyword ability, which is Corrupted. And Corrupted, and Corrupted says basically, previously when we had poison counters, it only mattered if you had 10. If you had 9, it didn't matter, it didn't do anything. But it's now going to say, if your opponent's got 3 or more, we're going to get some extra ability for doing it. So in the middle, early to mid game, when we've only got a few poison counters out, we at least get a bit of benefit for doing this. So we've got stuff like Bring the Ending, which is a counter spell, which is going to say normally it's counter something unless they pay 2. In the late game, when they've got a load of poison counters, we're going to counter it full stop.
Just a hard
counter, exactly.
That sounds good, yeah.
We've also got stuff like Serum Snare, which is going to return stuff back to the opponent's hand, and we're going to be able to proliferate and gain more and more poison counters through that way. So it's just ways for us to slowly build up these poison counters as we go. We've also, in addition to the Ivy and the Venerated Rotpriest, as an additional top end for the deck, we're looking at running a card called Bloated Contaminator. So this is a 3 mana 4/4, has Trample, Toxic 1. Whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, we're going to proliferate. It's a card that you feel like there should be a downside somewhere, but it just keeps going.
You're reading on, looking for where's the catch?
Yeah, exactly. When I first read it, I was like, oh, and it dies at the end of the turn. Or something like, no, it's just a super powerful green 3-drop that we're running in the deck. And the fact that it's got Toxic and Trample means that, hey, even if they're blocking it, if they get hit for 1 damage, they're going to take that.
If it connects, you're putting 2 counters on.
Exactly. So super, super powerful. Obviously, the mainstay of the deck is to be able to target our own stuff. So we need a lot of stuff that is able to actually target our own creatures. And one of the most powerful cards, I think, from the new set is actually one called Tyvar's Stand. It's a super, super powerful combat trick. So it's an X and a green, and it says target creature you control gains +X/+X till end of turn. It gains indestructible and hexproof. So it is not only a protection spell, but it's also going to be a massive finisher for the deck if we manage to get a bit of mana.
So the good thing about that is it can be used in quite a few different situations, because you can actually just have X as 0 and make it hexproof and indestructible.
Exactly.
And then you get your triggers and everything. Yeah, that sounds good. But then later on, you do it on like your Bloated Contaminator or something like that, and you can just get in.
Make it into a 10/10 that they has Trample. So it's super, super powerful, I think. And especially because, as you said before, the Venerated Rotpriest is really the heart and soul of this deck. So, as you say, just being able to play it for 1 green, give a hexproof, protect your really valuable creature, and because it's targeting it, they get a poison cutter. Everything we want to do in the deck. For a similar reason, we're also running Snakeskin Veil, which is going to put a +1/+1 counter on it and give a hexproof until end of turn. Because we've also got a bit of Proliferate in the deck. Really, really useful just to be able to make your our small evasive threats like Ivy or Drake. Suddenly, rather than being like attacking for 2 in the air, they're going to be attacking for 3, 4 potentially, which is a serious clock. So really, really useful. Another really interesting card that we've got in the deck, we're actually running 2 of the marches from Kamigawa. So we're running the green march, which is March of Burgeoning Life. So it says, it's a really interesting card, which says, target a creature that you control on the battlefield, and you can go and search up a creature that shares the same name as it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, really interesting.
Do you know, actually, I remember this one because I kept opening them when I was playing Limited Kamigawa, and I was like, this is
Not
no
super
good. This is the rare you get past in the draft.
Yeah. This is the 14th pick rare. This is, but yeah, I because our deck revolves around the Rotpriest and Ivy. Well, specifically the Rotpriest. We want to be able to get out. Hey, target a Rotpriest, give them a poison, get another Rotpriest,
Yes.
and if we can sit there and have 3-4 Rotpriests in play, our opponent is going to be dead in 1 or 2 spells. So this is a really powerful ability just to be able to pull them out of our deck and be more consistent. We're also playing the March of Swirling Mist. And so what this says, it's X and a blue, and we're able to make any number of our creatures phase out. So this is really useful, say if you're playing against a board wipe, we want to be able to protect our creatures as much as possible. Phase out 3 Rotpriests, they gain 3 poison counters, and they're going to survive to the next turn. Because we don't ever really care about them dealing combat damage so much, being able to hold this mana back and be able to protect them as much as you can is one of our main game plans for the deck, what we want to do. Yeah, so we've also got 2 really cool enchantments in the deck that we're looking to try out. So the one that we've got is Combat Research. Combat Research is a single blue, and it enchants a creature, and it says whenever this creature does combat damage, we're going to draw a card. And with all of our really evasive flyers that we've got, this is going to help us refill our hand, go through that. But it's also got a really cool line of text, which says, if the equipped creature is legendary, it also gains +1/+1 and ward 1.
Awesome.
So this works really well with Ivy. So if we've got, say, a Drake and an Ivy, we enchant the Drake with the Combat Research. Ivy's going to create a token copy. It's going to enchant it. We're going to get 2 triggers of things targeting our opponents, and then it's also going to become a 3/2 flyer in the air with ward 1. So
it's great with the Drake because it replaces itself soon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So super powerful. Another one that we've got, which is a bit more of the top end of the deck, which is a card called Vesuvian Diplomacy. And this is a really interesting card. It says, whenever you have a spell that targets a creature you control, you basically get a copy of that creature from there. So, and it's non-legendary, so we can target our Ivies, make as many as we want, our Drakes, and most importantly, the Rotpriest.
Yeah.
If we can have a board which has 5-6 Rotpriests, our opponent is basically dead. There is nothing they can do to really stop us. So super powerful card. It is a bit on the expensive side, it's more the top end. So, but it's one I'd be really interested to try out in the deck, essentially.
It sounds really interesting. I know we're going to come to the mana base in a second. I think if I was building this deck, I'd maybe try and push it even further. Maybe could even go into 3 colours as well.
Okay,
you could maybe go into black, because one of the things that I think if you were building this you could look at is there's a new 2 mana enchantment that gives a creature Toxic 2, and when it dies, you return it to the battlefield.
Oh, that's really useful.
Yeah, so that could be really useful, because imagine you put that on, say, for example, your Drake, you copy it onto an Ivy.
Yeah.
You've now got 2 flyers with Toxic, and
Toxic
you're
2
gonna
is
draw
a big
cards.
amount. Yeah.
I know it'll affect the mana base a little bit, but I'm just thinking now, seeing the
No,
deck,
I think that
could be a way to build it.
That's a really good idea. I think that's definitely something that would be worth trying out, because that sounds super powerful, especially with the evasive flyers we've got. So sounds pretty cool.
So let's talk mana base.
Yeah.
What have you built up here?
The mana base in Pioneer is actually getting a lot better as we go. So we've got our breeding pools and we've got our fast lands from Kaladesh. So
the pathways as well.
The pathways, yeah. So especially in a 2-color deck, I feel like we shouldn't ever really struggle with the mana base in the deck. We are also running the 2 channel lands from Kamigawa, because Boseiju is just basically a free disenchant whenever you want it. So super good. And we've also got Otawara, which is going to let us just bounce a creature, remove a pesky blocker, something, just protect ourselves for basically no opportunity cost. We're also running in pain lands, just because we want to be able to, our ideal game plan that we've got, we want to be able to do turn 1 Rotpriest, turn 2 Ivy, and Ivy is quite colour intensive, being a green and a blue, so being able to fix our colours early, even at the price of some life, it should really it's going to do as well.
That makes sense. I think it looks a really, really interesting deck. So against the current meta, what are you kind of thinking about the sideboard?
Yeah, so obviously a big part of any game is being able to sideboard against your opponent, know what to take in, know what to take out. So we've got stuff like, we've got a lot of different counter spells in the sideboard that we're going to be able to tech in depending on what our opponent's playing. So we've got 2 Mystical Disputes if we're playing against the blue player, just be able to fight them in a really efficient manner. We've got negates as well, depending on like big spells. You know, this could counter your Storm the Festivals or something like that. So we want to be able to remove these really efficiently. As well as that, we've also got Disdainful Stroke, which is against the mono green player. Hey, you're no longer going to be able to throw down these 6 drops that are going to absolutely dominate the game. We're going to get rid of it 2 mana. We've also got, speaking of things to hate on green, we've also got Dampening Sphere. So Dampening Sphere does a really cool, it attacks 2 different really popular decks in the metagame. So we've got, it's saying, okay, your Nykthos can no longer tap for infinite mana. It's going to only tap for 1 colorless, so it's basically useless.
Sorry, Ollie.
Yeah.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch some of the Pioneer gameplay episodes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's good. And it also says each spell, each player costs 1 more for every spell that is cast before it. So this is going to stop the Izzet players of the world. So every time, so you want to be able to consider, you know, shock my thing. Well, that's going to cost you a whole lot of mana to do. So this is going to really slow them down and help hopefully protect our creatures a little bit more. So
sounds good.
Yeah, we've also because graveyard decks are a big part of the metagame. That we've got stuff like Phoenix. We've also got 2 Unlicensed Hairs that we've got to just be able to clear out that graveyard while building up a threat as we go. Super powerful card. We've also got stuff like the Tameo Safekeeping. I put this in as a way to basically tech your combat tricks and stuff like that against whatever deck you're fighting. So I think if you find out that, hey, giving your creature indestructible is a bit more beneficial than the just the hexproof that Snakeskin Veil gives you, this is going to protect your creatures a bit more. Or if you want to bring them all in, if you're playing against a Rakdos deck or an Izzet deck and stuff like that, you want to be able to protect your key pieces. So super useful card. We've also got stuff like Pithing Needles, good against Planeswalkers, basically slow down the some of the more painful stuff that we could be going against the metagame. We've also got a really interesting card that I want to try out, which is called Cankerbloom. I really like this card. I think this is, as a sign, I think this is going to be a cube card from here until eternity. So I think it's really cool. So it's for 1 green, it's a 3/2, and it has pay 1, sacrifice it, and you can either destroy an artifact, an enchantment, or proliferate. So what it's mostly in the deck for is it's a semi-decent creature that we can remove a good, we can remove a problematic artifact or enchantment, and then if we have to, hey, give our opponent that extra poison counter that we need to actually kill them, or get more +1/+1 counters. It's just a little bit of versatility that's going to be on a creature that if we have to, hey, we can put it out and we can use all our combat tricks on it.
Makes sense,
really, really interesting. I'm up for giving that a try, essentially.
Great, well that looks like a really exciting deck.
I think it looks cool.
If you're going to be building Poison Ivy, let us know in the comments, and we'll be back in a minute for deck number 3.
So deck number 3 is my personal favourite of the ones you put through, and it's a really cool and interesting deck that I'm super, super excited to give a chance of playing. So what it is, I've called the deck Human Evolution. So what it revolves around is a new card from the new set called Tyvar Jubilant Brawler. So this is a Planeswalker that says you can activate activated abilities of creatures as if they had haste. So if you played, for example, Alana War Elves, you can immediately tap it as soon as it comes in. So really, powerful. But what this deck does, it's actually a combo deck. It's a combo deck that uses a card called Prime Speaker Vannifar. So Prime Speaker Vannifar is a card that is basically, if you've ever seen if you're an old modern player, if you've ever played with Birthing Pod, this is
This is the new birthing pod.
This is the new
The new birthing pod, right. Yeah, okay, cool.
Birthing Pod at home, but it's still super, super powerful. Like, so what it's going to do, it lets you tap and sacrifice a creature, and you're going to be able to get a creature with mana value 1 more from the one you sacked. But the way that we've actually built the deck is we want to be able to create essentially like a chain as we go up and be able to untap our Vannifar and sacrifice this creature, get a bigger one which untaps our Vannifar, which gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the main combo of the deck is we're going to be able to build our way up from a 1-drop all the way up to potentially 35 damage out of nowhere. So super, super powerful combo if it all comes together. So what we're going to do, we need a 1-drop in play and Tyvar if we can get it. What we want to do, we play Prime Speaker Vannifar, sack our 1-drop. We then go get a card called Corridor Monitor, which is a common from Eldraine, which is going to untap our Vannifar.
Okay.
When it comes in, it untaps any creature that you control. So untap our Vannifar.
Yeah.
We then sacrifice the Corridor Monitor.
I see.
We go get a card called Extraction Specialist.
Oh, I know this one.
Yeah, yes. Really powerful card. I've seen him play that in the mono white quite a few times. And that's going to, when that comes in, that's going to bring in a creature with 2 or less from our graveyard. We bring back the Corridor Monitor.
Makes sense.
We then, we can use that to untap our Vannifar. We sack it again, go get another Extraction Specialist, another Extraction Specialist, pull all 4 of them from our deck.
Yep.
Once we've done that, well, we can then do it again, sacrifice the last Corridor Monitor and go get a Glasspool Mimic. So Glasspool Mimic is an MDFC that's going to say it's going to come in as a copy of a creature we control. Hey, well, why not make it an Extraction Specialist? Go through all 4 Extraction Glasspool Mimics, 4 more Extraction Specialists. And on the last trigger, the thing that really makes the deck come together is a card from Dominaria United called Keldon Strike Team.
I see.
So Keldon Strike Team says it's a 3-mana card, and it's the last one we're going to get out, and it says when, if this came into play this turn, all of your creatures have haste.
Okay, so now you can swing with everything.
Exactly. So you're going to be swinging with your 8 Extraction Specialists and the Keldon Strike Team. So a massive, massive amount of damage that you're going to be doing. 26 damage from not just having a 1-drop in play and Tyvar. So super, super powerful. The deck also, the reason I called it Human Evolution is I've actually built this in a rather unusual way, and as I started messing around with the card, trying to figure out cool ways to build it, I found that the best way to make the deck work for the mana base, which we'll go in a minute, is to make it into sort of a humans deck.
Yeah.
So the reason we're doing that is, we'll go more into it, it lets us use lands that use specific creature types and cast for any colour mana. So
I see.
The deck is a little bit colour intensive, and we want to be able to offset that a little bit if we can. So we've got an additional way to pump out massive amounts of damage, which is Thalia's Lieutenant.
I love that
I love a card that is close to your heart, I'm sure. So
one of my favourite cards.
Tyvar, as well as just having this static ability, because when you think about it, we haven't even activated our Planeswalker. It hasn't done anything yet. We can also untap a creature, which means if we want to, we can get another activation of Vannifar.
Yeah.
Or we can get a creature with mana value 2 or less from our graveyard and bring that into play.
Okay.
So for either of those, that allows us to extend the chain in some way. So if we wanted to, we could, with one of the ones before where we got a Corridor Monitor out, before we do any of that, or right at the end is probably better, we uptick Tyvar, let it untap the Vannifar, tap the Vannifar again, and sack a Corridor Monitor and go, sack one of the 1-drops that we've got round and go get a Thalia's Lieutenant. The Thalia's Lieutenant, because all of your Extraction Specialists are humans, is going to put an additional, I think I worked out something like 9 or 10 damage into play that you're just going to be able to get from nowhere. Because a load of the creatures are actually humans in the deck, having these little synergy pieces like the Thalia's Lieutenant, stuff like that, is going to let you just, even when you're not comboing out, it's going to mean your cards have a good amount of synergy together.
Makes sense.
So another thing that we've got for that is another 1/1. We've got the OG Thraben Inspector, the best human that there is in my...
Play, Matt.
Yeah, beautiful, absolutely That's gorgeous playing that.
Thank you.
Another 1/1 that we've got is a 1/1 from Amonkhet, which is Bloodlust Inciter. And what this can do, it lets us, it's 1 red for a 1/1, and we can tap and give something haste until end of turn. Now what this is going to let us do is this is going to act as our additional copies of Tyvar.
Yeah, the redundancy
so
there.
what the deck, we're a little bit exposed if you just play on turn 4. We just let Vannifar sit there for a turn.
Yes, yeah.
If they kill it, we're really out of some stuff. So the ability to have this 1/1 in play, that when you play it, you tap it, give Vannifar haste, it can immediately tap, sacrifice the 1/1 that you've just used, and do the whole chain that we've just gone through. So super useful little redundancy piece there.
Yeah,
and you know, Tyvar, as good as he is a legendary creature, so we don't want to. It basically gives us more redundancy that way to play even more.
Well, it's good as
copies.
well because it acts as the 1-drop and the
Exactly.
Yeah.
2 pieces in 1 essentially. We also have, because the deck, it's obviously the ability to do a massive amount of damage out of nowhere is super, super useful. But sometimes you're going to have to, you're going to have to interact with your opponent a bit more. They may be ahead and you're going to have to be able to get behind. So because the deck and Vannifar allows you to actually search your deck from whatever you want, we have sort of like a toolboxy situation. Yeah. So we have stuff like Reflector Mage, bounce stuff back to their hand.
favourite card.
Yeah, it's
he hates that card.
Thalia, if you're playing against, Is It or something like that. Just a really disruptive little card that you can shoot it out from your deck if you want to. So
makes sense.
Super, super useful. We also have, again, like we talked in our second deck tech, another super powerful card, which is Tyvar Stand. This is going to let us protect our Vannifar, protect it, just give that, hey, well, maybe wait an additional turn, hold up 1 green, they go to kill your Vannifar at some pivotal point in the chain, hey, I'm going to protect it, and hopefully that's going to let you get through the whole rest of your chain, essentially. So super, super important to protect our Vannifar if we can. We're going to go into the lands now, I guess, and this sort of is where the deck becomes a little, it goes a little bit off the rails here. So I'll be honest with you, I thought this is a really interesting deck, but the when you look at the colours that we've got, it's basically a base 3-colour deck, white, blue and green, but we do need to be able to splash additionally for black for Tyvar.
Yeah.
And potentially red for Bloodlust Inciter. So we're potentially looking at a 5-colour Pioneer deck. So stretching the mana base like this was a little bit difficult, and it's one of the reasons that we went into the humans direction we did. So we've got cards like Secluded Courtyard and Unclaimed Territory, and they say whenever they come in, you name a creature type, and then you can tap for any colour you want that is cast a spell for spells that are that creature type. So we're going to use that to offset some of our colour burden a bit. Hopefully for us, these are going to essentially be 5-colour lands. We've also got Mana Confluence for the same reason. We just need to be able to be sure that, hey, we can tap for whatever colour we want whenever we need it. We do also, semi-sketchily, have a 2-of copy of Aether Hub. So this is a land that produces 1 energy, and it says you can either tap for colourless or pay an energy and tap for any colour. This is just going to allow us to do this. Our splashes for like Tyvar are only a 1-of. They're 1 single colour, and this is going to allow us to say, hey, for the most part, this is going to be a colourless land, but if we need it, we've got that black pit that we can pull out.
Makes sense.
We've got that red for turn 1 if we need to do it. So it's there is no other way to create energy in the deck. It's basically a 1 and done, but it's really
confuse your opponents.
Exactly. We've also got the Plaza Heroes. This is something that was from Dominaria United, and it basically says it's a multicoloured land, but it's only going to allow you to use that mana to cast legendary creatures or spells. So it also is a colourless land in addition to that. So because our most important cards on the deck are Tyvar and Vannifar, which are both legendary, this is just going to help us smooth that out a little bit. We've also helps us do stuff for like Thalia and stuff like that. It's the reason we've got a little bit more legends than you might be expecting. So that is how we've sort of tried to stitch together a 5 colour mana base in Pioneer, so interested to see how it works out. It might be a little bit stretched, but I think it might come together pretty nicely, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking at this now and I'm thinking you've also got the MDFCs from the Glassball Mimic as well, so there are other ways to make blue. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think maybe it might be a bit difficult, but
we might be dreaming big on this one, but it's something that I really want to try out. I might put together myself just to.
It is the new birthing pod.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. And so going on to the sideboard, we've got, as we said, the deck can be a little bit toolboxy as you want because we have the Vannifar that we can pull out individual pieces, whatever we want. So we've got stuff like Cathar Commando, which you can sacrifice to destroy artifacts and enchantments. We've got Archons Vemeria, which is going to stop our Izzet decks from being able to play multiple spells a turn. We're basically all in on creatures, so this is not going to affect us at all, but for some decks in the meta, this is really just going to shut them down. We've got a Graveyard Trespasser, which is going to come in and it's going to eat something from the opponent's graveyard, and then if they don't play spells into it, it's going to become a massive 4/4 beater.
It's a good card.
Yeah, super powerful. We've also got additional copies of Thalia. We go against Izzet or against Rakdos. Additional copies of Tyvar Stand if we're going against heavy removal decks. And we've got our unlicensed Hearse to be able to remove the graveyard as well. Additionally, this deck is able to run Gigantha as a companion. Again, but unlike the other one, it actually does have a little bit of synergy with the deck. So Gigantha is basically going to be a free 5/5 for the deck most of the time. But it also has a tap ability that produces 5 mana.
Makes sense,
hey, well, if we're playing Tyvar or our Bloodlust Inciter, it's a 5/5 that comes in and instantly basically refunds itself for 5.
Yeah.
And because our deck is quite intensive colour-wise, we probably will be able to spend at least a good 2-3 of that mana for nothing. So it's a potentially really powerful gameplay for the deck.
Well, I really like the sound of this. It looks really interesting.
Yeah, I'm super interested.
I mean, I've obviously as a humans player, it's interesting to see the next evolution of humans, as you put it. So thanks very much for putting that together.
I know.
And thanks very much for putting all the decks together. I think these are really, really interesting. What I would say to you guys watching, let us know what you think of these decks. Are there any you'd consider building? You've really been hard brewing these. If there's any changes you'd want to make,
100%.
Let us know the changes.
How you change the decks, it's something I'm super interested to see. Pioneer is a brewing format at the minute, so any way you can change, adapt, improve on stuff like that is going to make these decks go that extra bit further. So I'm super interested to hear that.
For me, the one that I'm most excited about has to be the first one. Pioneer Boros Hammertime. I think to be able to win on turn 2 is
super powerful.
Crazy. I'm used to playing a fast deck in humans, but turn 2 is crazy.
Yeah,
I'm just sat there with a planes, and you're just like, right, I hit you for 11, and then I sack, and then do 11 damage to you. Is crazy.
Super, super powerful.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on Chad Magic. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.
See you later. Bye.